the best builds that could be used at level 50. The first build is my current LG puck movement defenseman build. It's at 6'1", 160, pretty typical. Gold elite edges with silver stick 'em up and shutdown, power skating, and steady strides. The one change that you can probably make to this is the decision to put on steady strides for +2 excel. I see a lot of guys typically, they want to put on that +4 defensive awareness. That's optional. It's up to you. It's what you want. If you feel like you're a little bit lackluster in defense, change what you want. But overall, high speed, high excel, high agility, pretty high passing, about medium, 83 with the body checking is pretty nice. With shutdown, stick 'em up is pretty nice for me for the 80 stick checking. I found 85 defensive awareness not to be too bad. If you feel like, again, you're missing intercepts or something, you can always raise this, lower something else if you wish. And then the discipline, 85 again, set for me. You want to set this to where you're not getting penalties, and then the rest goes into deking. The second build I have here now is a sniper, the one that I would be using if I was to play winger. I don't typically play wing so much, so this kind of sniper is more tuned to just what I feel is better. 6'1", 160 with gold 1T. Now you could always change this to put on maybe close quarters if you wish, but close quarters isn't as effective this year, I don't think. Make it snappy is quite nice, but it's a decision of what shooting trait you want to put on. Silver, elite edges, and then make it snappy. Now you can change this, put on close quarters if you wish. It's more or less what you think is more valuable to your style and what works for you. Power skating, steady strides, just like always. High speed, excel, agility, high offensive awareness, and maximizing on passing. There's not much defense to this build. There is 77 body checking to this, so the defense of this is not going to be very solid for a sniper build. It just typically isn't anyway. So it's mainly for a winger build trying to score goals. And I'm not setting this for face-offs, but of course you can if you wish. You could always raise this up to 90, but I just don't recommend playing center as a sniper. I just don't think it's very good, and it's not a two-way build. The next one I have is a pretty, fun, kind of like, if you just want to show off some deeks and be creative. It's not really the one that you'd want to play competitive, but it can be pretty solid. So Dangler, 6'1", 160, gold elite edges. Now I put ankle breaker on and then make it snappy. Again, you could change either one of these traits if you wish to have something else. Maybe puck on a string. I heard that one's pretty nice. But ankle breaker allows you to obviously perform deeks at high speeds, and with maximizing on your speed here, power skating, steady strides with a 2 boost. Speed and excel, 94, combined with ankle breaker and elite edges with 90. You're pretty solid. You can definitely perform a lot of deeks pretty fluently. And then obviously go for those Michigan attempts much quicker if you get behind the net. And just overall with the 92 deking. Now I don't have this set for face-offs now, because I don't think it's a center build, and that would actually take away from deking if you were to try to raise this up to 90. So winger build for me, it's pretty mid-tier between what a sniper and a playmaker would be doing in terms of defense. It's still pretty solid. I mean, mid-70s isn't complete crap, but it's just not as offensive and not as defensive as something like a sniper or a playmaker, right? Kind of the middle ground. And it's still pretty solid though, so it's something that can still be used and worked on to get clips if you really wanted to. I have this set for defense. You could always change this for if you wanted to play center with it. Two-way forward, pretty versatile, 6'2", 190. Gold stick 'em up. Now this could be changed to pretty much anything. If you wanted no contest, you can have that, but I like the gold stick 'em up for this. Elite edges, and then I put shutdown. You could obviously change this. If you're playing center, you're gonna probably maybe put on big tipper, or maybe not, or maybe put on a shooting trait, make it snappy, close quarters, maybe even put on something from far away. I wouldn't recommend anything like heat seeker necessarily. You could put on tape to tape, but I really have been liking the shutdown trait in this game. It's been working pretty well, especially with the new hitting mechanics. It works very well. It's pretty much the same as the puck movement defenseman I got. You're just switching out one trait over and putting gold stick 'em up on. I got power skating and positional IQ. That's just for me. I like to maximize on the playstyle category for the two-way forward. Looks pretty nice with all those big numbers in the at least mid 80s, and gold stick 'em up. 83. That's pretty much, you're almost hitting 90 then for that, probably. And everything else is pretty much high. So I like it, you know. It is pretty versatile. Now, right now, this is my current centerman build for 6s and even also in 3s as well. But that's just because I'm more of a speed factor type guy. I love to have speed. A lot of guys in LG, right? Everybody's always rocking these types of builds. But 6'1", 160 with a playmaker, gold elite edges. And then again, this is my personal favorite, which is the shutdown. So this could be tuned to anything else if you wanted to. You could replace this with big tipper, tape to tape, whatever suits you well. But shutdown for me. I like the close quarters for this. You know, if I'm in front of the net a lot as a center, I typically like to get a lot of rebounds if shots are thrown in. So close quarters for me. And power skating and steady strides. Again, 94 for speed and excel. Pretty typical here. Now you're seeing this is much better defensively than the dangler sniper. And it's still pretty high with the offense as well, with the offensive awareness. Body checking, pretty mid-tier, right? Not really the best, but shutdown does help with it. And I've actually felt like it applies a pretty decent boost to body checking. So 76 for me is actually nice. And then the defense handles itself. 90 with the face-off. So discipline takes a hit. Deking as well. If you're taking penalties with this, raise this up. Subtract from deking if you're playing this as a center. You don't necessarily need to have the highest deking ever, really, because you're going to be feeding your teammates a lot and just kind of getting rid of the puck quickly, especially in the 6s environment. But very solid centerman build in 6s and 3s. The next one we have here is a two-way defenseman. This is a bit more lockdown, I would say, maybe, over the two-way forward. But it is still pretty much the same. The only reason you would ever put this one on over two-way forward is if you wanted to have gold shutdown. You can't access that as a two-way forward, so it can only be applied as a two-way defenseman. Now, what's the difference between two-way forward and two-way defenseman is that actually the two-way forward has higher deking, and I think the shot is a little bit better as well. It's not really that much of a difference, but the deking does go up. So this is at 80. And this is also subtracting the faceoffs all the way. If you look at the two-way forward, it's pretty much identical, but it has slightly, as you can see, slightly higher deking. And then, of course, you know, I'm at 85 discipline, but it's not, again, it's not much, right? But take what take what you can get, you know. So at this point, I can subtract this. I can't even reach 80 still. So you're pretty much losing out on 3 points. I mean, and you know, like, that's not even that much if you really think about it. Take what you can get, right? Like I say, there's no point in losing out on points just because, you know, it's not that much, or what you feel is not much of a difference. If it's there, it's there, right? If you're not going to use shutdown, don't use two-way defenseman, because everything else can be accessible with the two-way forward. But my choice here is to go with no contest with this and then elite edges, because I want to make this a little bit better if I'm going to use this as a more of a lockdown defenseman. No contest to help you pick up pucks. Power skating, position IQ, pretty much exactly the same. Again, the playstyle category is quite nice, right? 83 with the poke checking, whatever, right? You can always lower this if you wanted to. And actually, you really can't go any lower than 87 for me. So everything else, body checking at 84 with shutdown. I mean, you're looking at a pretty solid built defenseman that can lock down and play pretty well. Now, you can also change this maybe for for quick pick. I mean, if you really wanted to. A lot of guys have been missing intercepts. I've felt like I'm starting to understand the flow of this game, so I don't necessarily need to run it. And I felt like it hasn't really made that much of a difference anyway. So I'm going with no contest for this. But you can apply whatever you feel you're lacking. So everything else here attuned to my style. Next, we obviously can't ignore this. This is power forward, 6'2", 210. Your typical gold truculence build. We love to see it, right? This is a very valuable trait in this game. I'd say it's even better than 23, to be honest with you. You can lock down pretty much anybody with a speed boost on a charged hit. I mean, you can't even say no to that. So elite edges and then close quarters. If I was going to use something else, I mean, I don't even really know what I'd put on. I wouldn't use this in 6's environment. You can get a lot of elbowing calls, charging, cross checks. You've seen it all day, especially with low discipline that I have on this build, because I would be currently using this as a center with 90 face-offs, so everything else takes a hit. I don't recommend using this in 6's at all, because you're going to get penalized pretty easily. That's even more than 23. Using this in 3's, you're a pretty locked down player going for hits, and you can injure them, and then they get up really slow. The meta of the truculence in 3's is definitely there, so don't think it's gone. It's still there. Hip checks are still very useful, but gold truck, you're not going to miss a hit if you line it up even closely the way you used to in 23. So very good. Power skating, shooting threat, I went with that because there's not really much defense besides hitting people, you know what I mean? So apply more for your offense to make sure you score more goals than them. 90 speed, 88 excel, 82. Now, you know, you can always set this. I like to have, you know, a mid ground between the two. It may not affect you that much, but you want to be at least a little bit more built than those guys, than those smaller guys. But again, it's up to you. You can always lower this, you know, raise, maybe get a couple extra points. You're talking about 2 points, subtracting 3 here, but not a big difference, but it's up to you. Same thing with this, right? But everything else is pretty much attuned to me. Very solid 3's power forward build. And then you look at the other side of that as a defenseman. You can use this as well with 6'2", 210. Go for hits. Be very quick on the ice, and then throw some good passes, some good breakout passes to your forwards. So gold truck, 6'2", 210. Defensive defenseman, power skating, booming hits I went with. As you can see, the playstyle category, very similar to two-way forward and two-way defenseman. You know, you're looking at mid-tier ground for all this. Mid-80s, should I say, and above. Which is much higher than a lot of other classes with this stuff. So passing, not very good. That's why I went with the tape to tape. You could always throw on send it too if you're looking for long stretch passes to be consistently on target. But tape to tape for me has been very, very well. Offensive awareness is not going to be that high, so you don't even need it. 87 body checking plus truck. And then poke checking is still there. And defensive awareness, you're still going to be intercepting pucks here. Everything else is pretty much the same. You know, you're not really going to be deking out anybody. Don't even try to go for the Michigan, really, as a defensive defenseman. I mean, you could try, go for the slow-mo clip, but I don't think it's very valuable or should be used, especially in a competitive environment. So make sure you're not taking penalties. There's a reason for this. Now, you can lower this as well. Apply more. Actually, you can't. It's already at +5. Wow. So keep it the way it is. Offensive defenseman. I've never had an offensive defenseman class, really, that I've ever really wanted to use. But 6'2", 190, very similar to the two-way forward, two-way defenseman. Gold 1T. Now you're looking at this from the point perspective. You can also use this as a winger if you really wanted to as well. Beyond that, there's nothing else here that I'd even want to consider for this build. You're looking at if you wanted to maybe swing some 1Ts from the point, and also maybe even as a winger. So you're looking at a defenseman and a winger build here for this. Silver elite edges with shutdown. Now, if I'm going to play as a defenseman, I'd use shutdown here. If you were going to play as a forward, you could obviously change this for anything else that you'd want. Overall, I like this combo here with being able to blast it from the point and then still being pretty quick and being able to shut down my opponents. Not very different from the puck moving defenseman in terms of this, in terms of the play style. With body checking being low, stick checking being low, okay, it's not the worst. Shutdown is there, and defensive awareness will still allow you to intercept pucks the same. You know, you could always maybe subtract this to get a couple points here. Now you're at 88 offensive awareness, very similar to perhaps a playmaker or dangler build with the offensive awareness. So again, if you want it to be a little bit more defensive than your sniper, but still be able to defend, have an easier time doing it. And then you know, the discipline is there. You're not going to be taking penalties if it's very similar to your other builds, and it's still pretty much the same speed as the two-way forward, two-way defenseman type builds. It's a different angle of how you want to pursue the game, and I think it can be used and can be used properly without it trying to be forced in a sense. you're not giving up too much by throwing on a gold 1T at the point, as long as you know how to play proper defense. You're not going to be as fast as your puck mover, but you'll still be pretty locked down, and you'll be able to blast a shot from the point that the puck mover just simply can't do. If that's your style, then go for this build. Now, last but not least, I'm not gonna, say this is the best or much needed build, but it can certainly be used and should be used if this is your main look in the Sixes environment. Grinder at 6190. You're gonna use this as a center, and you're gonna park yourself right in front of the net with big tipper. Go silver elite edges with shutdown again. That's my personal favorite trait, so I'm gonna use that. But of course, you can use something else. Maybe you want a shooting trait for a rebound. Maybe you want to be able to swing solid passes to your wingers, or maybe swing it back to your defenseman. Who knows? Switch this trade out with what you want, but obviously this is only for the big tipper type builds. To try to deflect this puck as easy as possible, make sure it goes in pretty consistently. Now, I've had a lot of deflections where it goes in very naturally without this trait, so this is only going to add to that to make it even better. Power skating, positional IQ. You're looking at the same type of speed as a two-way forward type builds, and it is still pretty solid defensively. Now, I think actually this might be better than in previous years. I'm not entirely sure. I've never really used the grinder, but it's very similar, right, to your two-way forward builds in terms of the playstyle category. So it is actually, it can be used. And again, if this is your main look in the Sixes environment, why not go with this type of build? You're still going to be locked down defensively. If you're comparing this to the two-way forward, you're still locked down. You're pretty much at the same speed as them. And, you could take face-offs here, setting this up at 90. Discipline is still there. The deking is what is lacking, right? Over something like the two-way forward. It can be above 80 with the deking, right? The strength is there. The hand-eye is there. So it's not that much of a drop-off, to be honest. So if that is your main look, go with big tipper.